Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Colors in the Void, Episode 1. Today we're going to be reviewing Phish Summer 2025 Summer Tour, specifically Leg 1 between the 20th of June in Manchester, New Hampshire, ending the first leg the 27th of July in Saratoga Springs at SPAC. We'll be talking about tour highlights and just overall feelings about Phish's summer tour. So let's jump right in. Uh, the way I'm going to review the tour, I listened to the entire tour, and again specifically, this is just leg one. I haven't listened to much of leg two. That's why I'm just focusing on leg one for this episode. Um, but I listened to the tour as it unfolded, and probably like a lot of fans out there, I have favorite tracks, and then I save those tracks, and then I create a playlist at the end, almost like live bait, how that's presented. Loosely in a set list format, mostly just packed full of great jams. So that's kind of how I want to approach this review. Again, specifically talking about my favorite highlights. So jumping right in, the first track for me on my summer playlist is the Mama Dance from the 12th of July in Charleston, North Charleston, South Carolina. And I love this version. The song, obviously, it's been around a long time, since 1998, even the fall of 97, in its early, carnations as Black Eyed Katie. But, I've always enjoyed the song. It's been, maybe overplayed in my mind for a long time. But this version is just, it really sticks out. It captures, the sound, if you will, that they brought in 2025. This version, Trey and Mike tease the Macarena at the early part of the song before Trey drops into the first verse. He's using his wah-wah pedal a lot more in this version. I mean, you can hear some real funk, cow funk, if you will. At one point, Trey unleashes a sound effect like a siren or a loop or something that, threw me back to like 1999 or 2000, this sort of 1.0 sound, if you will, which just sort of added to the ambiance of this version, that it was very, very kind of unique. And it's pretty stretched out. I mean, it goes 14 minutes, which is long for Mama Dance, but it contains some great moments, and yeah, I definitely recommend it. So that kind of led off my playlist. And the second song that I have on here is from Pittsburgh, June 24th, and it's Dog Stole Things. I mean, it's pretty simple blues based song. But kind of a throwback to 1997, the summer of '97, when it was first rolled out in Dublin, Ireland. I wish they would release those shows as a live Phish release. That would be great. Those first two Dublin shows. Just a lot of new music, right? But yeah, great song. I feel like Trey was playing really, really good lead guitar on this version, so I really enjoyed that. The next track I have on my playlist is from the 21st of June in Manchester, New Hampshire, "A Wave of Hope." This one had a great jam. I mean, it kind of, the way that the jam evolved, it reminded me of the Down with Disease from 18 July 2017. And so the shows leading up to the Baker's Dozen, there was a Down with Disease from Dayton, Ohio, that just, had that Baker's Dozen sound. It had Page on the synth and synthesizer. But this jam, this Manchester Wave of Hope, reminded me of that Dayton 2017 Down with Disease. Just very similar. Great energy there. The other highlight that I have, on my playlist coming from Manchester is the version of Twist. The 3 minutes of Life Saving Gun, Trey's chording and comping, and they really come together nicely, and they carry that jam into Twist, and Twist ends up being a really, really great version. I know there were quite a few nice versions of Twist on this summer 2025 tour. Chicago and SPAC, for example. I know a lot of people rave about those versions, but this version for me takes the cake. It's got it all. It's all here. It's spacey, ethereal Phish. Leaning towards the dark end, leaning towards the dark side of Phish. More, um, you know, more, more, more dissonant Phish, which they can go light or dark. But this was a great jam. Um, Epic version, especially out of Life Saving Gun. Another tune on my playlist, and this one jumps back to Charleston on the first night, Sightless Escape. It's a Ghost of the Forest tune, and it was introduced by Trey in April of 2019. But with Ray on keyboards, he typically shines in that spot. But Phish, they do a great job here with it. They play a 17, 18-minute version with some really sort of fresh ideas, new approaches. That kind of was the hallmark for me on this tour. Just hearing a lot of new songs, hearing a lot of new music, a lot of new jamming styles, if you will. And that's what Phish has always done. They've always been musical chameleons, stylistically, as well as their improvisation. It's always changing. It's always evolving. Just because they're always changing. They're always evolving. So as they go through time, their music changes. So it's always fun to hear those changes. But this version really stood out. Great version. Mike plays Mike plays great beats. I mean, each band member is contributing to the collective whole here. It's a really nice throwback. So that was a pleasant surprise. Um, I did like, again, bouncing back to Manchester. I liked the song Meet. I'm a big fan of that song, and this was the only version played on this leg. They did play it in Hampton on the second leg. And it came out of a pretty spacey stash in Hampton. Probably
Yeah, and actually, I
the
meant
best
to
version of
say
stash we heard
Manchester,
on this
not
particular
Hampton.
solo
It's
tour.
the
But I always
Manchester
like to hear
stash.
Meet. Uh, there were a couple great versions of Tweezer on this tour. The version from Charleston, pretty sick version, right? Great guitar playing by Trey in particular, and I feel like Trey really stepped it up this tour on his guitar. I mean, I know he introduced another new Languedoc, but it seems like whenever he does, and the same thing happened in the summer of 2021. Trey himself elevates, and then of course everyone else elevates as well. So that's what I've seen when Trey rolls out a new guitar, and it goes back to 1.0 too as well, right? Like when he had, I think it's the Koa, the darker hued Languedoc. So it's always fun when Trey's sharing that as well, because we all love Paul Languedoc. He still is Trey's main luthier, and I mean, he doesn't tour with the band, but he's still making great guitars in Vermont, and his legacy with the band is long founded, and he's I'm sure he'll always be considered part of the band, even though he's doing his own thing, building guitars. His legacy is just it's paramount. The next highlight again from Charleston, they just played some incredible music in Charleston. I've been to Charleston. It's a very charming little town. It's got great food. It's got great history. It's a beautiful town, and I think Phish probably picks up on that energy. They love it there. They seem to always elevate their music when they play in Charleston. Even going back to '95, right? This is the 30th anniversary of the Fall '95 tour. This fall, they played an incredible show in Charleston back in '95, and I believe it was the 18th of November in 1995. But they opened with a super high energy dinner and a movie, and they play a pretty stellar version of "You Enjoy Myself," like they did that entire tour. So many great versions, in addition to the monstrous Halloween version. But the Charleston version sticks out as well. But I like the "Hey Stranger" from Charleston on this tour. Um, and again, I was hearing a lot of new music on this tour. From the album Evolve. I essentially, I cut back on my listening the last couple of years. Just busy, and frankly wasn't feeling that inspired by Phish these last couple of years in terms of, it had been a while since they last put an album. Not that they're driven by album sales or album output. I mean, they've always they've always danced to their own drum beat, if you will. But um, like all things in life, things ebb and flow, and so this was definitely an ebb period for me these last couple of years, especially after strong 2021. They just came out so strong in the summer tour, and then played an amazing fall tour and a great Halloween run. And then 22, yeah, I mean, it was good. And then these, like I said, in 23, 24, I was definitely listening a lot less. So this tour really was sort of a rejuvenation in my own listening of the band. I've been a Phish fan since late 1993, early 1994. So part of the fan group that, came on, just before Hoist came out, right? And I remember reading in Guitar World an interview with Trey, uh, because Hoist came out, I believe, in April of '94. So the Guitar World in this particular episode was, pretty like in the spring of '94, and it was a pretty interesting interview, really. If you get a chance, look it up online. I know there's some websites out there that you can find archived magazine articles, for example. That Guitar World magazine article is there, but it's a great a great throwback to '94 and when I got hooked, if you will, by Phish. Um, so yeah, going back to Hey Stranger, this song, it's a new song for me again, and it does kind of remind me of Mama Dance. It's like a modern day Mama Dance. It's funky. It's got that funk vibe, and it's cool that they actually wrote a new song, right? I mean, I mentioned the Mama Dance from the Next Night on July 12th, but this July 11th version, it's not the longest of the tour, but it's got some uniqueness. Trey, his first guitar solo, he hits the boomerang, so you have backwards guitar right off the back, and then Mike is just all over his effects, and he's just got all these crazy effects on his bass. So it's a pretty unique version. That's why I love it. It's 7.5 minutes, but definitely check it out. It's worth a good listen. And then to end set one on this playlist, I have the Life Saving Gun from the 9th of July, and that was in Ohio, I believe, Columbus. I'm not sure exactly. Let me double check here. Older dates. Yeah, it was in Columbus. So Life Saving Gun, and again another new song off Evolve. I thought it was a great way to end the set with a strong a strong version like this, a new song with a pretty amazing jam, right? You know, it, Mike in particular was laying down some pretty unique stuff on the bass, and I thought I heard him teasing Love Supreme. It was probably in a different key, but it's the same sort of bass that the bass playing that he was playing in the Big Cypress Split Open Melt right before they segue into Catapult. It's just a simple two-note thing, but it's very cool. So I heard some of that in there, and it's just it's this tour. It's like they're ending sets with a new song like Life Saving Gun with a great jam, as opposed to Antelope or Gaiuti or Walls of the Cave, and they did end sets with those songs, but on this particular night they ended it with a pretty stellar jam out of a new song, which is always good. People love the SPAC Choctaws Torture, and I mean, I thought it was pretty cool. The first time I saw it on video, Trey was just, playing some really rapid guitar lines, single note lines. And I mean, for the first time in a long time, it seemed like Mike was having difficulty keeping up with Trey, which you normally don't see, but that just shows you how much fire Trey brought to that jam, right? I mean, he was on fire. But as good as that jam is, I actually like the next night's Down with Disease a little bit better. I felt like there was more of a collective sound in that jam. There were more rhythmic changes and periods, if you will, which I like as well, right? I mean, I do like the collective jams when they're listening and things really sort of open up, as opposed to just Trey playing single note lines the entire jam. I mean, for me, that gets really old. I do like it when Trey steps back, maybe chords, or he just stops. I like it when Trey is playing playing more guitar, more than just single note lines, basically. And he's a very diverse guitar player. He can do so much. So I like it when he's bringing everything he can to the table not just single note lines.